And it's now time to take a look at what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. Let's bring in, of course, analysts on the program. Kola Alakwini is an international human rights lawyer. He joins us right away as we take a look. Thank you so much for coming to the program, Kola. But let's begin this morning from this day of record as we take a look at the biggest story on the front page of this day newspaper. The experts hailed 346 million US dollars US Nigeria arms deal as boost for terrorism fight. That is one story there for, of course, the front page of this day newspaper. Of course, this talks about the fact that, and of course, it's about a recent arms deal. What about $346 million between the U.S. and Nigeria aimed at boosting Nigeria's fight against terrorism, particularly against Boko Haram, ISWAP, and banditry. And such deals often include, military hardware, surveillance equipment. Let's also look at other story there. Tambuwal, EFCC can't intimidate me, says Odio plot to silence him. That's coming from the former governor of Sokoto State. Inflation drops marginally to 21.88% amid lower food energy prices. Let's take a look at another story. The APC, ADC, PDP show strength in today's by-elections. And of course, lastly, Trump-Putin end meeting. Hope rises for ceasefire. Kola, let me bring in, of course, earlier about the fact that experts hailing the $346 million US Nigeria's armed deals. Of course, they have said that it will boost perhaps fight against terrorism. But however, there are also raised questions about transparency, proper use, and the long-term sustainability of relying on foreign defense support as well. Can Nigeria truly, win the war on terror through foreign arms deals? That's the question. Let's start from that particular headline.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because if you remember in the twilight of the Jonathan administration, Nigeria did procure the use of mercenaries, which helped us to stem the incursion of the insurgents. However, and we even postponed our presidential elections for a couple of weeks to be able to.
That's right.
Well, immediately President Buhari came in, then he did away with the mercenaries and said we're going to continue with our soldiers. However, President Buhari himself bought some arms from the first President Trump's administration, where we spent about over $500,000 US dollars, $500 million, about 500 or 550 $1 million on the Super Tucano jets, the choppers. But have we really seen an end to insurgency? Have we seen a change, a translation in the narrative? And I'm afraid, no, we've not seen a return on investments as far as Nigerians are concerned. So here we go again, spending this amount of money. How does it translate into success on the field? I think that's the important thing. That's not just when we're bandying around all these big figures, and it just looks like the United States is cashing in on Nigeria. But I might be wrong, but that's what I think. We need to see all this money that we're spending translate into real success
and of course, if the U.S. is the the ideal partner in this particular scenario, I think, of course, perhaps that will give us a kind of leverage on terrorism. And remember, at a point, like you said, they stopped selling arms to Nigeria.
Yeah, because of the Lee, there's an act in the United States called the Lee Act, which says you cannot sell ammunition to a country that violates human rights on the field. And with that, they used it to block arms. Remember, the Jonathan administration tried to procure arms through the back door in South Africa, and they pounced on the private jets that went, and I think about 10 or 15 million US dollars was seized, which we got back a couple of years later. So these are the issues. How does it translate into success? That's what people want to know. With the people who live in that neighborhood, we just be hearing all this astronomical figures, and they've not really seen a change on ground.
There's also the issue about accountability, what accountability measures, should be in place to ensure such purchases are not mismanaged or diverted. That's another big question that a lot of people are asking, the issue of accountability. But again, when it's also come to accountability, I think there's also a caveat to it that, okay, since it's a security matter, you seldom or you rarely have exclusivity to the information.
Well, that's not country, Nigeria. Military procurements and arms procurements are usually shrouded in secrecy. It's not the same if the United Kingdom's Department of Defense are going to budget something for nation or United States. Is going to be subjected to a robust debate in Senate. But over here, we just shroud everything.
It's a security vote.
You see it happening
so
to the governors.
Disclosed.
You see it happening with the governors with a huge amount of money being pumped to them, especially with the increments in the FARC allocation. But have we really seen anything different on ground when we have billions of money being voted to the governors and the governors cannot do anything on ground? When we keep calling the governors the chief security officers, like it's just a fanciful name of describing who the governor is. The governor commands no security. He has no powers. The police does not listen to him. The army does not listen to him, or any part of the military. They all listen to their defense chiefs or the chief of army staff, etc. The police will answer to the IG, and the IG will answer to the president. At the end of the day, the buck stops on the president's table.
Interesting. Let's take the next, headline there, of course, still on the front page of this day, which speaks about Tambuwal. EFCC can't intimidate me. I think the former Sokoto state governor and, current senator is pushing back against, an alleged, intimidation by EFCC and what he described as a plot to silence him. He claims that his ordeal is politically motivated and designed to silence him. Do you believe that this is a plot to silence him? Remember, some people have also, put it maybe in a joking manner, as if once you are in the APC, your sins are covered. But if you're not in the APC, you have your fingers burnt.
That's not a joke. That was what the former APC chairman said when he was trying to woo members of other political parties to come to the APC. He says once you join the APC, your sins are covered. Remember, the EFCC went after the current Senate president as well, and it swiftly ran from the PDP to the APC, and that was the end of prosecutions. The EFCC really needs to stop this charade. It's a merry-go-round and of jokes, and media. Trial by the media really needs to stop. Which of these former governors has ever really been convicted for all these crimes, alleged crimes that EFCC talks about? Look at the charade going on with Yaya Bello. It's not going to go. It's not going to go anywhere. We've seen it with former governor of Ekiti State, Fayose. He even made mockery of the EFCC by wearing a T-shirt and saying, "EFCC, here I am. Don't turn this into, oh, you're looking for me," or what. I wore the EFCC, he wore the shirt with the EFCC, I'm right here, and he wore it right to their doorsteps. What has come of it? So it appears once you hold a different political opinion to the ruling party or the party in power, the normal tool or this normal scheme of things is to send the EFCC after you. And it's a recurring decimal. We've seen similar character evidence in the various governors which I've told you. I don't see this Tambuwal's prosecution or persecution going anywhere.
Let's take the last headline on of course, this day, which talks about the APC, the ADC, PDP shows strength in today's by-election. As you know, of course, the by-election in Nigeria often serve as a litmus test, kind of for political parties ahead of bigger elections. But again, this headline seems to be highlighting the APC, the ruling party. Of course, the opposition party PDP, against maybe a relatively, let me call it, a relatively small party like ADC. Speak to that. The outcome, of course, will have to shape some kind of narrative going forward.
We'll have to wait till the evening. when the results start rolling in.
Trickling in.
Yeah, and to be able to really find out who has strength in which area. And also, we have to also wait to hear the complaints. You know, where the
of course, there will be definitely
where the
complaints
various,
about elections.
The disgruntled parties are going to come up and say, oh, I was robbed, someone snatched the ballot box, and it will be interesting. So I think it's too early to
it's
be
okay.
able to know where the pendulum is going to swing.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Punch newspaper now, the front page of Punch. The biggest story, screaming headline, flight fury, inside storm of Kwanwan. Emerson's pardon. And let's take a look at maybe some riders, how powers that be compelled Fuji musicians' apology. Real reason, federal government withdrew charges against female passenger for giving everyone, says Emerson. That's comfort. Perhaps, maybe he has forgiven everyone because we're beginning to see some, attention shift, to have. I mean, it was because we've seen the different offers for the young lady since the incidents. Speak to this as well. What do you make of all of these flight fury?
This is one of the most topical issues that have come out of Nigeria in the last, since the beginning of the year. And it's multifaceted. First, you had the incident of the young man who incidentally, we went to law school together, who disrupted the flight when the Supreme Court announced the results and did not go the way he wanted. I think it said that he belonged to the obedience camp. And we saw how swiftly he was removed from the plane. He was charged to court. And subsequently, they did allege that he had mental health issues. Yeah. And the courts referred him to mental health treatment and everything. Then you had the incident of a lawmaker, the senator, who was throwing tantrums like a child in the airport, and he got away with it. It would have made powerful imagery if that lawmaker had been put in handcuffs and was splashed all over newspapers and everything and was arrested. Because that didn't occur, it emboldened people like the musician who was trying to obstruct the plane. And I was really afraid for his life, If the wings of that plane had hit him in the back, not even in the head, People say, oh, he could have chopped off his head. If he had hit him in the back and he had a spinal cord injury or something, that would have been total disaster. And I don't condone what the pilot did, no matter the frustration or the provocation. The primary duty of the pilot is to secure the safety of the passengers and the aircraft. And then you have the young lady as well, who, as I said, is multi-headed, because we have not really heard from this young lady. I am not condoning what she did, but all the narratives have been one-sided. And because of the way which the musician's case had been treated, we couldn't prosecute, and the politician, because we didn't prosecute. There's a penalty for it. Anybody who disrupts the airline or the plane or wherever pays 200,000 fine and 2 months imprisonment, or both of it. Because we handled it shoddily, and we obviously showed that everybody is equal. You remember, in Animal Farm, all animals are equal, of course, but some animals are more equal than the others. And that is what has plainly been displayed.
Because of our time, let's quickly and take a look and run through some of the papers. The Guardian is next. How global cannabis boom fuels illicit drugs use in West Africa. That's on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. The Vanguard now has these. Benue Plateau leaders to Tinubu, your marching orders not effective. Talking about killings. Of course, as killings, header men attacks continue after president's enough is enough order. Niger Delta stakeholders advised Tinubu to adopt unconventional approach to overpower terrorists. I think that's the major one from the Saturday Vanguard there. But let's take a look at Tribune now. By-elections, ADC, APC, PDP, chieftains test strength as polls hold in 12 states. IGP orders watertight security. Kwara bandit attackers came from Zamfara. Mieti Allah president. I think that's what we have on the you know, look at this, but let's go to the global scene now. We have some new, of course, some papers there. Let's go to the global newspapers now and take a look at what they have to say. Let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph, for instance. Daily Telegraph, for instance, has that. If you take a look at the British Prime Minister, or talking about British boast on the ground in Ukraine within weeks of a ceasefire. But there seems to be like some of the paper there. Well, I think perhaps we'll have to look at some other stories on the news, on the front pages of some of these paper quickly, because they are coming in letter. Okay, I have them now. But let's take a look at iWeekend. iWeekend is next now, as we'll wrap up in a minute. Putin's nuclear warning as UK stands ready to deploy military to back Ukraine. There you have it. I need you to speak on these because, yes, briefly, as we wrap up now, there was a meeting. The meeting ended without a deal. There's also an expectation that, yes, more meetings are going to come in the coming days. But speak to this issue. Very good opportunity that some people would say, okay, they would have made the use of it, but nothing actually came out of it, even though Trump has described it as that they've made progress with this conversation. Well,
I want to speak about the non-verbal cues that accompanies these high-powered meetings and you know, the show of the display of force. If you remember, when Angela Merkel was the Chancellor of Germany, and she was going to meet Putin, she has a phobia for dogs. And what did President Putin do? In the meeting room where they were going to have this meeting, he allowed his dog, a very big dog, to come into the meeting. And you could see a whole president, the Chancellor of Germany, just, you know, shrinking in our seats and mortified by what Putin had done. What happened to President Zelensky in the Oval Office was not an accident. It was a pure display of brash power by the United States, you know, just to let him know who was in charge. And do you remember what happened yesterday when these two presidents, President Putin and President Trump, were meeting in Alaska? As soon as they were going to climb the podium, and you had these stealth bombers just come out of nowhere and do a fly past over President Putin. Right. President Putin was trying to assert himself and say, hey, man, I got my bombers up there. And so it's very interesting how these power figures around the world use these non-verbal cues or verbal cues or raw display of power to really draw their point across. I don't see a deal coming out of what's going to happen in Alaska. I think President Zelensky was right when he was telling them in the Oval Office that it needs to be on the table when a deal is going to be
he was excluded from this current meeting.
You cannot shave a person's head in their absence. So there's no critical breakthrough that's going to happen without President Zelensky being on the table. And also without the United States extracting a firm commitment from Russia, which was what President Zelensky was saying. You just keep talking about this guy as if he's the hero. It needs to come to the table, and you need to extract firm commitments from him.
I think we need to go. Thank you so much, Ekola Lakpin is an international human rights lawyer. Thank you for your time on Daybreak. Well, that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I am Frank Komalape. It's goodbye from me. Please do keep it here on Arise News.